Good evening, gentlemen. I don't even have to say ladies and gentlemen. Is my mic on?
We're not on.
It is not red, but we're not on.
Do you want me to unmute?
Volume's not on, at least.
You're red now. You're ready. Okay. Good evening. At this time, I would like to call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Meridian Planning and Zoning Commission on August 15th, 2019. Let's begin with roll call.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Holland?
Here?
Commissioner Seal?
Here.
Commissioner McCarville?
Here.
Commissioner Casanelli?
Here.
Commissioner Perot?
Here.
Absent are Commissioners Olson and Fitzgerald.
Thank you. Excuse me. Next is the adoption of the agenda. The first item on the agenda, we will, I apologize. I just lost my place. We will be opening items, we won't be opening item A, but items B and C. And item A will only be, actually, we don't need to open it at all because they have just withdrawn. So, okay, so item A, we will not be hearing this evening. The applicant has withdrawn the application. So if you're here for the public hearing for Verasso Village North, we won't be having any testimony this evening. So can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
So moved.
It has been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Motion carries. Okay, so we will move forward. I don't see the consent agenda on this evening, so we don't have that. Is that correct? Okay, just want to make sure. This is the first time I have ever seen it missing. All right, next at this time, I would like to briefly explain the public hearing process. We will open each item individually and then start with a staff report. The staff will report their findings regarding how the item adheres to our comprehensive plan and our uniform development code with the staff's recommendations. After the staff has made their presentation, the applicant will come forward to present their case for the approval of their application and will respond to any staff comments. The applicant will have 15 minutes to do so. After they have finished, we will open to public testimony. There is a sign-up iPad in the back as you entered for anyone wishing to testify. Any person testifying will come forward and be allowed 3 minutes. I'm assuming nobody is here speaking for a larger group since we don't have a larger group, so we will bypass that information. After testimony has been heard, the applicant will be given another 10 minutes to have an opportunity to come back and respond if they desire. And then we will close the public hearing and the commissioners will have a chance to discuss and hopefully make a recommendation, a decision or recommendation to City Council. So at this time, I would like to open the public hearing for Elevate Franklin Storage, H2019-0076, and we'll begin with the staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Give me just a moment, please. All right, we're ready to go now. Sorry about that. First application before you is a request for a conditional use permit. This site consists of 2.74 acres of land. It's zoned R15 and is located at 3755 West Perugia Street. Adjacent land use and zoning, there are existing and future multifamily residential uses to the north and west, zoned R15. A church to the east, zone CN, and single-family residential and multifamily residential in the development process to the south across Franklin Road, zoned R15 and R40. This property was annexed back in 2005 with an LO zoning district, and a rezone was recently approved and is in process for R15 zoning. The comprehensive plan future land use map designation is medium-high density residential, and it is in the 10-mile interchange specific area plan. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for a residential storage facility consisting of 401 storage units on 2.74 acres of land in the R15 district. The proposed facility is a component of the multifamily residential development to the north and will provide a variety of storage units ranging in size from 5 feet by 5 feet to 10 feet by 20 feet and consists of 47,813 square feet of storage area overall. Access is proposed via West Perugia Street at the north boundary of the development, the northwest corner right here. And an emergency access is proposed via North Umbria Hills Avenue here along the north boundary on the east side. Street buffer, landscaping, and parking are proposed in accord with UDC standards. The Kennedy lateral runs along the west boundary of the site. The council did previously approve the waterway to remain open and not be piped. Building elevations were submitted for the perimeter storage structures as shown. Construction materials are proposed to consist of ledgestone, corrugated horizontal metal panels, flat metal panel accent bands, hardy panel staggered edge shingles, and standing seam roof. Compliance with the standards in the Architectural Standards Manual is required. The manual does prohibit prefabricated steel panels as field materials for building facades except when used with a minimum of 2 other qualifying field materials and meeting all other standard fenestration and material requirements. The structure will be reviewed for compliance with the design standards at the time of submittal of certificate of zoning compliance and design review prior to building permits. Written testimony has been received from Rick Stewart at Babcock Design, is the applicant. He's requesting condition of approval number B3 in section 8 of the staff report is modified to reflect council approval of the waiver to UDC 11-3A6 for the Kennedy lateral to remain open and not be tiled. Staff is recommending approval of the conditional use permit with the change noted by the applicant. Staff will stand for any questions.
Do the commissioners have any questions for staff?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Casanelli?
Sonia, so you're recommending for approval with the lateral to remain open? Is that what you're saying there then?
That is correct.
Okay. And then Madam Chair, and
Council has already approved that previously.
they have. Okay.
Yeah, quite a while back.
And then will there be any outdoor RV storage allowed in this?
There will not be.
Okay. Thank you.
Along the lines of the lateral remaining opening, I think I remember in the staff report some mention of fencing, a fencing requirement. Can you speak to that?
Yes, Madam Chair. The fencing requirement will be in the areas where the buildings do not abut the lateral. So where the buildings abut the lateral, that will serve as the fence.
Okay.
And then just the areas that don't will be required.
Is that something we need to actually address in our motion?
I can clarify that provision in the staff report if you'd like.
I think that would be helpful.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Any additional questions for staff? Okay, thank you. Will the applicant please come forward? Please state your name and address for the record.
Okay. My name's Rick Stewart. I work for Babcock Design. I live in Boise, Idaho, 2516. You want my residence address, right?
Business or personal, it's fine.
Okay. Well, business is 800 West Main, Suite 940, 83702. Okay.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Okay. In regards to the staff report dated 8/15 that we received, we will comply with all of the comments by the city except for 2. We had comments on 2 of the city comments. So underneath item 8, city agency comments, item number 3 with the site landscape plan. Let me see here. We're talking about the perimeter fence that you guys had just touched on. So after speaking with Sonia this week, we clarified that the building perimeter along the Kennedy lateral will act as the perimeter or the boundary to the lateral. And then we'll be providing a wrought iron fence that's similar to Silver Oaks development that's just to the north along the parking area of the site plan that you see before you. And then the other item was item number 3, underneath B, the Public Works Department. Apparently, there was, in response to all irrigation ditches, canals, laterals, and drains exclusive of natural waterways intersecting, crossing, or laying adjacent or continuous to the area be developed shall be tiled per UDC 11-3A6. The city council waived the condition requiring the tiling of Kennedy lateral with previous subdivision approvals. I think we've covered this. The project should be exempt from tiling the lateral. That was the only comments that we had. Or responses to the city comments.
Commissioners have any questions for the applicant? Madam Chair. Commissioner McCarville?
The staff report also mentions several times in bold about the different uses of different materials. Are you in agreement with the staff report on that point?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
I am under the assumption that the intention is for the residents that are in that apartment complex there to be using these to relieve some of the traffic. Is that, or that was the intention, to relieve traffic along that local street there?
That is correct.
But this isn't specific to that complex, and it's a public storage facility,
That is
right?
correct.
And so if that doesn't, if you get several users that come from other areas and it doesn't actually accomplish that, is that, can you speak to that somewhat? I think just to have it on public record.
I guess, can you clarify your second comment? I'm not quite sure.
Yeah,
I understand.
absolutely. So it really doesn't, I guess my question is there an intention that a certain number of these units be rented out by the individuals in that specific development, or is that not a part of what you're attempting to do?
No, it's completely free and open.
Okay.
There is no limitation as to who can or cannot rent. It's for public use.
Okay. Okay. Any more questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, can I get a motion to close the public hearing for item number H20190076? Oh, I didn't, do we have anybody signed up to testify?
Madam Chair, we don't have anybody.
Okay, my apologies. I assumed that no one was stepping up and that so thank you very much. Okay, is there anyone in the, please come forward.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Members of the commission, Becky McKay, business address 1029 North Rosario and Meridian. I'm here representing Mr. Wolf and his partners on this to kind of answer the question that you asked. It is the intent that this facility will primarily serve the Franklin Apartments that they own that adjoins it, to require people to put their storage within this facility instead of utilizing garages for storage. So it is our intent and our desire to accommodate their needs so that we can open up those garages to be utilized for cars, so we don't have parking on the public streets or parking up and down, over in the church parking lot. They want to make it like an incentive for those who come in to rent an apartment, that they could do a package deal so that if they do need storage, and then tell people you can't use the garages for any storage of personal property. So that's kind of, that was the whole intent. I think, we've gone through all this process with the ordinance amendments and the rezones and everything to get it to this point where it comes in under conditional use. There are stipulations on hours of usage and compatibility, additional architectural standards that wouldn't be found in your normal commercial or industrial zone. So, this is intended to be complement the multifamily use. And so we're excited to get started and try to, like I said, alleviate people using these garages for personal property storage. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Any questions for Becky?
Madam Chair.
Thank you very much for clarifying that, because I'm sorry, go ahead, Commissioner
No.
McCarville.
No.
And thank you for pointing out the hours, Becky. Seeing that, is there going to be a on-site manager?
I believe in the residential storage ordinance that we took through, it indicated that there would be, either be an on-site manager or that they would have to supply the city with security plans, cameras, and, I mean, they have to have some type of plan on how to maintain safety and manage it accordingly if they don't have someone on site. And so that's written into the ordinance, that they have to provide a detailed plan. And I believe they're working with a security company on that.
Okay,
They've already started that process.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
thank you.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner McCarville?
Becky, is there any preference given to the apartments or anything? I mean, I know that you're encouraging it with the package deal, but preference as far as how many of the units you'll let go to general public that doesn't live in that surrounding area?
Madam Chair, Commissioner McCarville, is that right? Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
It's been a long week.
Me too.
Yes, they
only
are.
been 5 years.
They are going. I don't know. I'm getting old, maybe senile too. I kind of drew a blank. Yeah, you have been here a long time. I forget my own address some nights. Yes, they want, it is their desire that, hey, if they can fill this whole thing with the Silver Oaks residents, they're gonna be happy as a lark. They also have another multifamily project. It's not their project, but it's gonna be adjoining them on the west. So they see that as a potential, customers. There's another, I guess, multifamily project south of Franklin that Corey Barton's building. So I don't think that there's going to be any problem with filling this up, but they do want to make sure that their residents get priority.
Right.
And so I'm not sure, how they're going to implement that, if, they're going to reserve a certain percentage, if, they've talked about giving them financial incentives so that, hey, you don't have to try to find storage 5 miles away, we're right here, and we'll give you a deal. Because they want to alleviate this parking issue as soon as possible.
Thank you for clarifying. That was what I was getting at with my question to the applicant, and
Yeah.
you said that much more clearly. And asking because you've got 5 apartment complexes all within a quarter mile of that location. So I thought, well, what if a bunch of the residents from the lofts or,
Right.
are going to come and they're going to take, then it won't accomplish the purpose of relieving some of the
Yeah.
parking, so.
The problem associated with the parking issues in the garages facilitated this. So it is their desire to solve that issue. And so it's in their best interest to give these people priority and reserve units for them.
Well, I'd like to say I really appreciate the proactive approach that they're taking to do this. And I know our commissioner that we love to recall, Mr. Parking, appreciates any parking improvements that are made. So thank you. Any
Thank
more
you.
questions before she steps away?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Casanelli?
I have a parking question.
I have a parking question.
And this is open for staff too. Any comments from either one, Becky or staff? With regards to the parking and the issue that there is, has there been, because I didn't see anything from police in here, any comments there. Has it been, have they commented on parking over in that area in the past? Or is it just kind of known to be an internal issue?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Casanelli, it's been more of an internal issue. I don't think they've been cited or or had problems with emergency access or police access to the facility. It's been more of, they've recognized their own problem, and, you know, they just, you know, people lining the collector roadway that comes in, which is also serves the church. They have daycare facilities, youth facilities. I think, you know, the church has commented on that, you know, they don't like that. So they're being proactive, like the chairman's indicated.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, before we close the public hearing, is there anyone else who would like to testify? None. Okay, thank you.
Madam
Make it a
Chair?
motion.
Madam Chair.
Oh,
I'm apparently having a hearing problem tonight.
go for it. I was just gonna-
We're in studio. I move we close the public hearing on H-2019-0076.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to close the public hearing on H20190076. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, next we will move on to the public hearing for Bainbridge North
Are
H2019.
we gonna,
What did I do?
are we gonna vote on it?
Oh my gosh, I'm just having a night, you guys. Seriously, it's just. Please forgive me. I'm with Becky.
If they want to stick
Having a-
around for the
Yes,
vote,
we should vote.
I don't know if they want to stick around for the
I don't
vote
think I've led a
out
meeting
there.
this poorly in a long time, ever. All right, so open for discussion, commissioners.
Madam Chair.
I promise I'm not in a hurry to get out of here. I'm good.
I know, without looking back at the minutes the last time, we spent a lot of time
Yes.
on this the last time, and I can't remember everything that came out of it. I think hopefully we're seeing seeing things that, seeing us, the fruit of our labors, I guess, to put it that way, that night. But I think it looks good. The only thing, my only thought that I would possibly like to see is, it was on section 5, paragraph FK, was the number, it was no outside storage. I would love to see that we add to that no RV storage if possible. Granted, there's no outside, but I'm just assuming if they built, covered storage for RV, that would be my only thought. I would love to see this in the back of the property, but it is where it is. I think it will help. I don't know how well they can police who gets in there, across the street or wherever, but I think it will help. So I think that's good. So I would say, all in all, I think it fits what we've been after. It works. I would just like to see maybe an emotion adding adding to that no outside storage, the condition that there's no RV storage allowed.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner McCarville?
I agree. I think this is exactly what we were after with that conditional use, for having the storage in the R15, because we all well know, we do our best to do our calculations on parking, which always includes the garages and the spaces, and then everybody moves in and rents the garages as storage units, and nobody parks their cars in there. And so I think this absolutely addresses that point, and happy to see it hopefully doing what it's supposed to do.
Commissioner Holland?
Madam Chair, I would agree. I think as far as storage units go, this is probably one of the better ones we could see, and it's in the right area of town because it's wrapped around by a bunch of multifamily. And that's really where you need to have this to help offset the parking concerns over there. I don't know that I see the same issue Commissioner Castanelli brings up with needing to add that RV storage is excluded, because looking at the site plan, they're not gonna have the ability to add RV storage in there anyway. It's pretty tightly in there, and it says no outdoor storage, so they wouldn't be able to put RVs in there. If it makes you feel more comfortable, I'm happy to make a motion that adds the words "and RV" to the outside storage, though. No problem there. And I think both the conditions they've requested changes on, no concerns.
Commissioner Seal? Anything to add?
Nothing to add, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Madam
Hey.
Chair?
Who would like to make A motion. I don't have anything to add. I think I agree with my fellow commissioners that this is a good location for this, that it's really necessary at this point with as many multifamily developments as we have coming in the area. And I'm happy that they're taking the initiative to do this, to try to alleviate a traffic issue, which always leads to alleviating safety issues, or, to addressing safety issues. So, and as far as the design goes, I don't have any obvious concerns. There isn't anything that stands out to me that is creating a concern for me, so.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Seal?
I'd like to make a motion. After considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to approve file number H20190076 as presented in the staff report for hearing date of August 15th, 2019 with the following modifications. I'd like to have the wording modified to not allow outside or RV storage. Would like to modify section 8A3 to allow the building structures to serve as the lateral boundary, and also section B3 to allow the lateral to not be covered.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve, so before I proceed, this is a conditional use permit, and so this will be the final decision. Okay. It has been moved and seconded to approve with modifications. File number H20190076. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, now we can move forward to the public hearing for Bainbridge North H20190074. Let's begin with the staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. The next applications before you are a request for a development agreement modification, and that actually doesn't require action from the commission, only city council. A preliminary plat, planned unit development, and a private street and alternative compliance are also proposed that do not require action from the commission, only from the director. It's of 35.57 acres of land. It's zoned R15 and is located at the southeast corner of West Chittenden Boulevard, State Highway 2026, and North Tree Farm Way. Adjacent land use and zoning, there are single-family residential homes currently under development to the north in the R15 zoning district and to the west and south in the R8 zone. And commercial uses are planned to the east in the CG zone. This is where the new Costco is proposed to develop. This site was annexed back in 2018 along with the property to the east, and it is included in a development agreement. The comprehensive plan future land use map designation is medium density residential, which calls for 3 to 8 units per acre. A modification to the development agreement is proposed to update the concept development plan for this site. The one shown on the left there is the existing one in the agreement. For a mix of single-family residential attached and detached units for seniors age 55 and older. The layout of the development is the only thing that has changed. As you can see, the map on the right is the new proposed concept plan. The existing plan depicts a central common area surrounded by building lots. The proposed plan depicts a gated community with 3 large separate active and passive common areas dispersed throughout the development and is accessed by gated private streets. The applicant also requests to amend provisions number 5.1.5 in the development agreement, which requires the property to be subdivided prior to issuance of any building permits, in favor of allowing 1 permit for the community center clubhouse to be issued prior to subdivision of the property. And as I stated previously, the commission is not required to make a decision or recommendation on this application. Staff is in favor of the applicant's request for a building permit for the clubhouse. The proposed preliminary plat consists of 165 building lots and 13 common lots on 35.57 acres of land in the R15 zoning district and is proposed to develop in 2 phases as shown on the phasing plan on the right. A planned unit development is proposed for a mix of attached and detached age-qualified 55 and older dwelling units. Residents or dwelling units that incorporate a variety of housing types and setbacks unique to unit and site design. The development is proposed to be gated for security purposes and have private streets, alleys, and a common driveway for access to the units within the development. Deviations to the typical R15 building setback requirements are proposed as shown and as noted in the staff report, and to UDC 11-6C-3B5, which requires alleys to be designed so that the entire length is visible from a public street. As private streets are only proposed internally, that is not feasible. Access is proposed via 2 gated private driveways from the adjacent collector streets, Tree Farm, and Lost Rapids. Private streets, alleys, and common driveways are proposed internally within the subdivision for access. Qualified open space and site amenities are proposed in excess of UDC standards. A minimum of 10% or 3.56 acres of land in open space is required. The applicant is actually proposing 26.37% or 9.38 acres as a common open space area. A minimum of 2 site amenities are required. The applicant is proposing a 10-foot wide multi-use pathway within the street buffer along Chinden. A micropath connection is proposed to the east to the commercial development for interconnectivity. And a community clubhouse, pool, and outdoor activity center are also proposed as amenities. Again, these far exceed our minimum UDC standards. Noise abatement is required for residential uses adjoining a state highway. A 6 foot tall fence on top of a 4 foot tall berm is proposed. Wood fencing does not qualify as a sound attenuating material. Wall materials are required to consist of impervious concrete or stucco or other appropriate sound attenuating material. Monotonous walls are also not allowed and must vary in color and or texture in accord with UDC standards. A revised plan is required with the final plat that is consistent with UDC standards. Or the applicant may request alternative compliance for a substitute noise abatement proposal in accord with ITD standards and prepared by a qualified sound engineer. Conceptual building elevations were submitted as shown for the proposed single-family residential attached and detached units. Traditional alley-loaded homes and patio homes are proposed. All attached units are required to comply with the design standards in the Architectural Standards Manual. Written testimony was received from Mike Wardle, Brighton Corporation. They are in agreement with the staff report except for the following modifications to conditions number 3F in section 7, which requires a sound attenuation wall, as I previously mentioned, to allow the developer to submit alternative compliance for a substitute noise abatement proposal as allowed by the EDC, and as I mentioned previously, and deletion of condition number 13, as the proposed intersecting alleys break up the block face and comply with UDC standards. The condition noted that the northern block exceeded UDC standards, but it does have intersecting alleys, so that does qualify as a break in the block face. Staff is amenable to these changes. Staff is recommending approval with the conditions in the staff report and the amendments requested by the applicant. Any questions?
Do the commissioners have any questions for staff?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Holland?
one question, I think this should be an easy question, but was this always designated as a senior 55 and older community, even with the previous concept?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Holland, yes, that's always been the plan for this property.
Thanks.
Sonia, in the section that the applicant is not in agreement with, when it says that staff is amenable to these changes, and they're requesting an alternative compliance for a substitute noise abatement, are you in agreement that they go that route, or are you saying that you're in agreement with the actual change that they're?
Madam
You're
Chair,
proposing.
I'm only saying that I'm in agreement with the change they've requested to allow alternative compliance, as
Okay.
that is how code reads. It does allow for alternative compliance
Okay.
to that section of code. They have not proposed an alternative. Staff
Yet.
has not reviewed an alternative, no.
Okay, Okay, thank you. Any additional questions for staff? Okay, thank you. The applicant, please come forward.
Madam Chair, Commission members, Mike Wardle, Brighton Corporation, 2929 West Navigator, a new address for us in Meridian. I'm not seeing anything on the screen here. Is there a button I need to push, Chris, so that I can kind of follow what? I'm not going to spend a lot of time because Sonia's really covered the information quite well and has provided most of the information from the slides that we would show as well. But just to repeat, this area was annex zoned and conceptually approved just last year. And it does show that concept from 2018 in the upper left of this particular slide, which was in the application last year designated as an age-qualified gated community conceptually. And so we are back now with the detail. I just wanted to take a moment. Staff had recommended some additional conditions, and we are in concurrence, but I just wanted to illustrate them using this particular slide, which kind of simplifies the area. But specifically, there was a request for staff in conditions 2B and 3E for some additional guest parking on adjacent to the two more passive open space areas. We certainly agree it's a great suggestion, and we concur with that. At the lower left, condition 2A and 3B was a recommendation to add a pathway, and it's kind of interesting that in our original concept, we actually showed a pathway in that location. It dropped out in our review, but we're in agreement with that particular suggestion as well. And over on the right side of there's a condition 3A that's talking about the pathway connection that we actually show currently in the northeast corner of the project up toward, it would provide access over to the commercial area. Staff in its condition 3A has suggested moving that pathway to a specific location which we've depicted, but they have also an or statement that says, or work out something that really provides the type of alignment to get it to the more to the front of the Costco area, so that people that are going to be headed that direction would be able to go more directly into the pedestrian facilities there rather than out into the drive aisle areas. We'll work on that particular item. The language as it's recommended is certainly acceptable. We concur with all of those requests. And then just to illustrate very specifically what the product is, these are from our Paramount Cadence project, which we are in the final phase currently. There's 192 units total in that project. The first 2/3 were developed last year and is all but done, and we have now constructed all of the improvements for the last phase of that project, and we'll construct those units. So this particular Bainbridge Cadence product will come on as that particular one is closing out, and we're finding great interest in it. So these are actual live photos of, first of all, the top is the community center. In this particular case, it's really a very large, substantial center. There will be something of similar scale, slightly smaller project in Bainbridge than we have in Paramount, but it will still have all of the same types of facilities and swimming and active elements for the neighborhood. So just to summarize and respond to your questions, staff has indicated agreement with the modification we've requested for condition 3F, which in fact the code does allow for alternative compliance. So we will investigate options and determine if there is a different, more amenable solution. than just a huge concrete wall. But that's a determination to be made that we will have to work with staff to justify. And then condition 13 was the one about the length of the block face. And that particular item, we do comply with that UDC code stipulation. I would be happy to answer your questions. I think it's a fairly straightforward proposal and very consistent with what we proposed last year, although the layout is a bit different, but we think improved.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Holland?
Mr. Wardle, would you mind talking to us about what the buffer is going to look like on the east side of the property as it kind of abuts to Costco? Worried just a little bit about, if there's loading docks or whatnot, kind of on the back side of that, of how that'll
Yes, Madam Chair, Commissioner Holland, when we brought the project in last year, we brought them together, and we worked closely with Costco. My boss, who is here, might have a little bit better idea of exactly what the dimension is, but we have a very substantial, probably a 30-foot or more buffer on our side of the property line. They will have an additional 20 feet on their side. And so it's very substantial. Now, there will be loading docks, and there will be circulation around the Costco building, but because of their hours of operation and so forth, and the stipulations made at the council level when that project was approved, we think it will be compatible, but we knew from the get-go that we had to provide a substantial separation between the two, and it will be as tall a buffer or berm as we can do with fencing on top of that as well.
Great, thank you.
Can you speak to us about the proposal to do the wood fencing with the 4-foot berm versus the concrete wall, and what the thought is behind that?
I'm going to defer that question to Jonathan Wardle, because as we dealt with that issue in Bainbridge number 7, which is immediately to the west of this, we came to a different conclusion and received approval of that particular request. So I was not directly involved. The other Mr. Wardle was.
Madam Chair, for the record, my name is John Wardle, 2929 West Navigator, and I may technically be Mike's boss, but I don't get to tell him what to do, so I want to be clear about that. Regarding the sound attenuation, we just wanted the flexibility. When the reason this came up is in our previous phase on Bainbridge, we were faced with 2 parallel gravity irrigation lines, which really impeded the ability to put a concrete wall in that location. So we started looking at our options. And when we went to a sound engineer to go through the exercise, they actually found that the wood was the same, if not better, than a concrete wall. So all we're asking for is that, and we're not telling you that we are going to do a wood fence here, but the way the condition was originally written, it excluded the opportunity to do alternative compliance. And we just need to look at that. So we have quite a bit of width there. We have the ability to berm that up even higher. I think we have a couple combinations where we could do, get that berm close to the 10 feet. But there's a few things going on right now as well with the widening of Chinden Boulevard, and some things are not set. So we just want to ensure we have that flexibility.
Thank you. I realize that's not something we're making a specific decision on, but I think it's good for you to share that on public record. So if there's public questions about it, I appreciate you explaining that to us.
Absolutely.
And that it'll be gone through with the alternative compliance process.
If I can answer the other question regarding
absolutely.
the buffer between our project and Costco. So from our property line, we are showing outside of the lot a 35-foot landscape buffer. And then there would be the setback to the homes, which would be another at least 15 feet on our side. From that buffer, from the boundary line to the Costco building would be another 25 feet. So within, from our lot line to Costco, we would have 60 feet. And we're going to raise it up at least 6 feet to the peak of that with a 6-foot fence on top of that with a lot of our landscaping. We worked through those details. That was one of the elements that was really important to us as we were working with Costco, that we had a substantial buffer, that it had height, had more than sufficient landscaping plus a fence.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Casanelli?
Two questions, and maybe they're for Mike, I don't know. But number one, is your preference on that path in the northeast corner where you have it shown? That's question number one. I'll throw out the other one right now. With the original development agreement to this one, are the number of lots, has that changed up or down? Can you comment on that?
Thank you, Commissioner Casanelli. We don't know that we prefer the other location, but what we were trying to do was limit I guess I'll call it the penetration into the heart of the community from necessarily the commercial area. It's a little hard to control that, and that northeast corner, while it took it up more toward the drive aisle access, there is still a buffer down the Costco side that would provide a sidewalk element to separate people from the traffic. But we want to be able to use the or phrase in that condition to really work on that question. So I'm not going to guarantee today exactly where it will be. We'll work with Costco and with staff to come up with an agreeable solution. But we kind of thought that northeasterly corner was a little bit easier place to do that rather than kind of in between the lots down below. Your second question,
The number of lots. in
the number of
original
lots.
DA.
We didn't specify the number of lots last year. Let me go back to the site plan, though. It's been just over a year since I've really looked at that, but I believe that the number of lots depicted was 160 at that point. We didn't specify the number of lots, though, and the DA does not necessarily identify that either. So it was just a question of working out the particulars of a site plan, coming back and modifying the development agreement with that revised site plan. And so we've got 165. Now, we actually had a layout that was more than that, but Jonathan just noted that we've expanded the buffer along Chinden to give ourselves more room to get elevation. So we ended up taking out some lots in order to move that north boundary line of the lot, rear lot line of those lots along Chinden down some additional distance in order to give ourselves some flexibility there. So, but anyway, the number is 165. I think the original showed 160, but they were not specified or limited.
Overall density is the same as.
Overall density is approximately the same. It's 4.6 units per acre is what the gross density is of the project as it's proposed.
Okay. Thank you.
A question about the alley load homes. So in my real estate experience, those alleys tend to create an issue when it's trash day, when people have left containers out, when somebody consistently parks a car there and doesn't move it. Is there a way that that's going to be managed through the association, maybe through a process of, hey, if a car is left there more than 3 times, something like that? Because I know it's because of the numerous alley load streets, that it's going to potentially be an issue, I would assume. So has that been discussed?
Well, we do have stipulations and enforcement capability within the CC&Rs. The fire department requires those to be signed as no parking areas. There are 4 little pods that have a couple of spaces there along the edge, and those have specifically been noted in the staff report as allowable as long as that 20-foot wide alley itself is not impeded. So can we guarantee that there won't be some knucklehead that will do something stupid in the way they use their property and so forth? We can't, but we do have enforcement mechanisms.
And it's my understanding that the driveways are only 6 feet, so no one is parking in their driveway.
That is correct. With those alley loaded, they're just 6 feet, which does provide enough room for that garbage can to go there. One of the
Yeah.
other mechanisms that we do have is that they're all private. And because they are private, the HOA has the ability to address that immediately, whereas if you call ACHD to tell somebody they're parked in the alley, there's not really an
Yeah.
enforcement mechanism for
Okay.
that. One of the things that has been unique for what we've done in Paramount and Cadence is we actually have a full-time lifestyle director who's there every day and interfacing with the residents. And so there's a lot of communication that happens real time. It's not just a letter that's sent out. There's somebody there most all the time. Over time, could that change? I mean, it will depend on what those residents decide to do. But the association dues associated with this and the lifestyle that we have found, they really have liked that social aspect of that.
Just asking because it's a safety concern. And I realize that, I appreciate that the private street allows for additional compliance, that they don't have to go through the city of Meridian to.
For code enforcement, yes.
Yeah, right. Any more questions for the applicant?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner McCormill?
so that's the setbacks you're talking about, going from 10 feet down to 6 feet on those alley
Let me
entrance.
go to. Yes, and that's exactly what we did in the Paramount Cadence product. We also did that in another project that we did out in the Mill District Square in Harris Ranch. And functionally, it works just fine. But as Jonathan noted, that does give you an apron area to park your trash receptacles on out of the alley itself. And functionally, we're not aware of any issues in any of those projects.
Any additional questions for the applicant? Just out of curiosity, you're not having, obviously, you wouldn't be making or sending an application if you hadn't already had this discussion, but I'm surprised that the senior community is wanting to purchase, next to a state highway, and then, of course, 10 Mile is going to be widened, and then we've got Costco, and that tree farm could get some congestion there. Is that, it doesn't sound like that's going to be a deterrent to your customer?
Madam Chair, it hasn't been an issue that we're aware of at Paramount Cadence, which is also on Chinden, which will also have the experience of 2 additional lanes within the next year or so. The only real interesting concern that's been raised is the fact that some of these people would like to have an 8-foot wall around themselves so that nobody could ever, come over a berm or crawl over a fence or something. But we're not into, we're creating a sense of security, but not a sense of isolation. We want these elements of the community to be functionally associated with their neighbors, frankly. And so just as in Paramount, where it's separated by a collector street, this particular product is also separated from the conventional single-family community in Bainbridge by collector streets, Tree Farm, and Lost Rapids. But visually, they're not going to show, a substantial difference because they'll have the same type of fencing from one side of the street to the other. The buffers will look the same. These will be a little different in the sense that these will all be essentially single-story homes, some with some areas that might have a little bit of a bonus space in the pitched roof area, but essentially this is going to be a lower level community and not quite as imposing physically, structurally as their neighbors to the south across those collector roadways. So we're comfortable with it and interesting. The design materials and construction materials in the units anticipate those types of additional noise along a highway, but that's again part of the purpose that the city has required the additional berm heights and walls and so forth that help attenuate some of those concerns. Appreciate the opportunity to discuss them with you. Thank you.
Well, the reason I ask is because, obviously a big part of our role is to decide what's the best and highest use. And this is a large piece of property on a state highway, and I think that there's, some additional questions we want to ask because of the unique, I realize that there's already been a decision made with the DA that this will be allowable, but just wanted to get your thoughts on it, so.
Well, Madam Chair, just one additional comment. Being part of that particular age-qualified group, we can always take our hearing aids out if we want to get a little bit more peace and quiet, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Any more questions?
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Casanelli?
Mike, if I could, just kind of touch base on Cadence at Paramount. A couple of things there to compare them. What's the berm and wall height there at Paramount, where it abuts Chinden?
Madam Chair and Commissioner Casanelli, it's the same. The one at Paramount is a combination of berm, and then if you've driven the highway there a lot, you've noticed that there are some lower areas, and that's where there is a wall, and it's more of a decorative structure, but it's not continuous, so it's a combination of the height of the berm, lower berm with the wall on top that accomplishes the objective. So that's 10 feet. That meets the requirements. In fact, in some areas, it's probably higher than that.
And the Cadence there, are there homes that back right up to Chinden?
Yes, sir.
And has that been an issue with selling those properties as far as noise there?
Those properties have sold quickly, and let me just note, you'll see in the center of this particular schematic where the alley wraps around, we've got exactly that circumstance in Paramount. It's virtually the same. And those units all sold very quickly. They're all occupied. Have not heard any feedback that expresses concern for that, other than the fact that somebody could walk over the top of that berm if they opted to.
I could pole vault it, I guess.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have anyone here that would like to testify?
Madam Chair, no one signed up to testify.
Is there anyone in the public that would like to testify? Okay. So if there are no additional questions for the applicant, I assume he has nothing else to add. Let's go ahead and take a motion to close the public hearing.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner
I
Casanelli?
move we close public hearing, item 3C Bainbridge North, item number H2019-0074.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to close the public hearing for Bainbridge North H2019-0074. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Holland?
Overall, I feel like it looks like a nice development. I like that it's more of an R15 right next to the Costco, because I think it's nicer to have that density mix, but it's not, I like the way that the lots are laid out where they're smaller but single level. It makes a nice community. My only concern actually is just that it's a senior restricted housing community, because I always like when anybody can have access to live in a community, but that's my own personal preference. So it seems like we've passed a lot of senior housing lately. Otherwise, no big concerns. I think if they work with staff on alternative compliance for noise abatement on the highway, I don't have any big concerns with that, because I know our staff will find something that works well with the applicant. And no concerns with their other request to change section 813. So.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Casanelli?
All in all, seems to be a pretty good project. Cadence and Paramount seems to be a witness of that. If it's selling very well, I don't think the sound buffer. I think they can come to an agreement of that. I don't think Brighton is going to put in something that's not going to work. They're going to want to sell those. That was kind of why I asked those questions. How that compares. So I think concrete would be better, but again, I think if they feel that the mix of materials they want to use to match what's further to the west is going to be adequate, then then I think that I do like a couple pathway comments. The path in the southwest corner, I like that, how it ties in. And I'm fine with the language of going with the or to keep the path in that northeast corner. I think it would deter people that may be over at Costco to be just kind of randomly walking into that development as well. So I think having that or language that they're requesting, I'm good with that.
Yeah, I think one is to speak to what Bill is mentioning. I agree. I like it in that northwest corner because I can understand concerns that not so much people being able to access Costco, but people not coming in from that area. And I also understand the staff's thinking about making it pedestrian accessible. And was that, can I get some clarification on that? Is that a recommendation? Is that really something the staff's essentially wanting to require, or is that just a recommendation for the pathway change?
Madam Chair, it is a condition of approval.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Staff doesn't really care how the connection happens, but right here as it's proposed, site plan for the Costco that is yet to be approved does not show a pedestrian walkway on the Costco site from this pathway. So basically, this pathway would just dump people out in the driveway where all the traffic enters the Costco site.
Okay. So they don't have a site plan that shows where they intend to access to this
Do not.
community? Okay. Any additional thoughts?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner McCarville?
I guess since we're talking about the pathway, I guess my first thought is that it makes sense to have it a little closer down to the building whenever that site does get approved, just because then you're not having all the pedestrians walking through the parking lot. But overall, I do like the new layout. To me, it seems better to have that space spread out throughout the layout. Looks good. I'd be in support of it.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Seal?
I also like to compliment him on the design of this. It's, I mean, considering the intended use of it, I like the fact that it's, I mean, it looks like it's fairly maintenance-free for the people that are going to be living there. So there's not a lot of, there's ample open space, there's the clubhouse, and there's things like that, but there's not a lot of things on their property to necessarily, they're going to have to take care of on a day-to-day basis. Lawns to mow, trees to trim, things like that. Looks like that's all incorporated into the subdivision, so really appreciate that some time went into thinking about those things on these units. Also, it fits really well into everything. About the only thing I can say is it's right on Shinden, so it's a lot of houses going on there. But other than that, everything looks very good. Appreciate the time you've taken to develop this.
My thoughts. So when I first started reviewing the application, I wasn't excited about it because of the density and because of the alley loads. But I appreciate what you've shared because it relieves my concerns quite a bit to know that there will be somebody on site who can have some oversight and be able to communicate with the homeowners association about the concerns. If that wasn't the case, I would have asked additional questions about that. Having managed a large HOA, it seems like a HOA president's nightmare to me. But all that to say, I think the plan that's presented here is better than the one that was originally shown, the rendering that was originally presented, and I like this plan much better. So I think it's great that you've added the 3 common areas instead of the one central common area, and that you're going to be encouraging the social element of it, because that always makes for stronger neighborhood, stronger what do you call it? Almost a culture that encourages the neighbors to take good care of their properties, and that will really help with the density issues. So, all that to say, it sounds like that everybody's pretty positive about it. So, if there are any motions to be made,
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Holland.
after considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to recommend approval to City Council file number H-2019-0074 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of August 15th, 2019, with the following modifications: that we would adjust section 7.3F, requiring the sound attenuation wall, and allow the developer to submit alternative compliance for substitute noise abatement proposal as allowed by the UDC. That we would delete condition 13, that proposed intersecting alleys break up the block face and comply with UDC standards. And that condition number 13 is within section 8A13 if we need more clarification on that. Otherwise, that the staff would work with the applicant on where that pathway on the east side of the boundary makes the most sense. And that's it.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded to recommend approval with the stated modifications for file number H20190074. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Why didn't we have a big crowd? Where's our people? All right.
Madam Chair,
One more motion tonight.
Madam Chair,
Something.
members of the commission.
What did I forget?
Well, we talked about it at our
Oh.
prep meeting, but I wanted to just share with the commission that city staff is nearing completing the process of the comprehensive plan update, and we are looking in the near future of submitting that application and getting that before this body for recommendation on to city council. And we've identified some dates in October. Ideally, we'd like to have it scheduled for October 17th, but in the case that we have a heavy workload or heavy hearing items on that particular hearing date, we would like to at least have the commission's consideration of having a special meeting on October 10th. So what that would mean for your calendar would be essentially 3 public hearings in the month of October. So I wanted to put that out for you, to all of you, for discussion this evening, whether or not that would work for your schedules as we head into the fall months. We want that application to be a standalone application so that we can give it the due time that it needs, as it is an update, a new comprehensive plan that we're rolling out to you. So there's a lot of items to go over. Our consultant needs a specific date to come into town. He's struggling whether or not he can make it here either on the 3rd or the 17th. So again, we want to give the consultant some options, but I'll just open it up for any conversations you may have on the idea of having a special meeting on the 10th or potentially looking at October 17th.
I'm open both days right now, Bill.
I won't be here on the 17th. So the 10th, I think, would be better.
What time on the 10th? Evening or day?
Well, with a special meeting, we have the opportunity to change that time, but don't want to start too early in the day. Want to give the opportunity to the public to come out and participate in the process as well. But I'm certainly had a discussion with Caleb before this meeting started this evening, and was open to the idea of possibly starting a little earlier, maybe 4:30, 5 o'clock, if that would work with you.
I'm out on the 10th. My son's rehearsal dinner.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Bill, Meridian Arts Commission has the room 3 to 5 that day.
So it has to be 5, yeah, it has to be no later.
there another-
No earlier than 5.
Is there another day that week that the room's
Yeah,
available?
it certainly doesn't have to be a Thursday either. It's open, we'll open up to you what works. Yet to be determined.
So as the time gets closer, you'll know whether we really need to schedule that 3rd meeting.
Well, our target date for an application submittal is September, and so then usually that leads to a hearing date in October. So if we get a new if the application is submitted by us beginning of September, we're going to target the first hearing in October. If it happens more towards the middle of the month, we're going to shoot for the middle of the month. But again, the 17th is a potential. Right now, we're just getting to that point where we're starting to schedule for the first hearing in October, so I don't know I don't have a crystal ball and don't know what's coming in at this time to get on that agenda. But again, we want to keep it a light agenda as it is an important topic for us to discuss at that hearing.
Bill, could you send out a doodle poll maybe with a few
Sure.
date options and we could get back to you and see? I think it'd be great to have as many commissioners there as we can. I
Yeah,
know
agreed.
obviously a
For sure.
couple of us have served on that comp plan committee, but would love to have everybody at the table.
Absolutely. I'll go ahead and send Caleb an email, and maybe if Brian or Brian can set up something and get something out to the commission. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
What they said.
It has been moved and seconded to close the public hearing for August 15th, 2019. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.